Hello everybody, welcome back to practice today. Today we're going to work on a sort of movement snack for the lower body. We're going to work on strengthening, mobilizing, stabilizing the whole system, feet, knees, hips, ankles, all of it. So let's go ahead and get started on our backs. We can just make ourselves nice and comfortable down here, maybe with the soles of the feet touching on the ground. Take as much time as you want to feel yourself nice and settled. And then we'll start working with the feet first. So to do that, go ahead and draw one leg into the body. You can hook the hands around that thigh. And if your thigh is too far away from you, go ahead and get up and grab like a towel or something that you could wrap around instead and kind of extend your reach. And from there, we'll go ahead and take the foot towards the leg towards straight. No kind of pressure there in the knee. We just kind of let it do exactly what it wants. And then we'll work with some foot and ankle mobility. So first, let's dorsiflex the ankle. At this point, we know that's heel pressing up, top of the foot pulling down. Really getting a nice pull there, push there through the heel. And see if you can get this motion so that the knee there's kind of no undue pressure in the knee. The knee feels nice and soft, like you could bend the knee a couple of times, even if you wanted to kind of test out that. And then we'll take the foot in the other direction. So now we'll point the toes. We'll really curl through the bottom of the foot. And this is where we might feel just a little bit of cramping. So if that's you, just back out until you don't feel it and then come back in. And let's go in and out of that. So heel up. And then nice and controlled, toes up. Going in and out a few times. Really trying to recruit this movement from the ankle itself. So noticing any tendencies to sort of borrow from the knee or down the leg towards the hip. Trying to make this really slow and controlled through the full range of motion. The next time you come to the dorsiflex position, let's take some ankle circles. So again, just recruiting from the muscles around the ankle, the shin, the foot. You can start to move the foot around. And the more slow and controlled we can be here, the more that we're really owning this range of motion. We know that we have good control. And this may feel quite intense for the muscles of the shin, the muscles of the calves. Keep breathing through and take both directions. So you can see how even something kind of as light and as simple as this does a really good job to turn the feet online, to turn the ankles online, the lower legs. And after your last one, go ahead and release that. Let's go to the other side. So it starts with a dorsiflexed ankle, that's heel up, that's toes down. We give it a moment, a pause. So we can really see like, how does this feel? How does my knee feel? My hips feel? How does the rest of my body feel? So that even though we're isolating one area, we're still paying attention to the whole body as a unit. And then point the foot, point the toes. Whew. And going in and out, dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. In and out. Really trying to recruit those muscles in your shins. And your calf. The next time you flex your foot so the heel's up, the toes are down, we can start to take our ankle rolls. And so don't think you have to commit to a huge range of motion. That's not the point. We're looking for controllable range of motion. We're looking for a range of motion that we can own with our muscle contractions. And then slowly over time, that range of motion will sort of radiate bigger and bigger. But that's not really up to us. Go ahead, change the direction of the circles. And as you're ready, go ahead, float that foot down to the ground. Now we can warm up through the muscles of the upper legs now that the forelegs are a little bit turned on. So plant the feet in front of the hips. We know that the weight-bearing axis of the body goes outer hip, outer knee, outer ankle. So let's line the legs up like that. Outer hip, outer knee, outer ankle. Arms down. We're just gonna press down with the feet to lift the hips just a couple of inches off the ground, but we're gonna try to hold the pelvis in neutral and relative to the spine. So we're gonna try to not do any sort of anterior tilt with the pelvis or posterior tilt with the pelvis. And you can actually go in and out of anterior and posterior tilt just to see if you can find like, where's neutral with my spine? Where does that feel? And I feel like frontal hip bones drawing down into the body, tailbone kind of lifting to the backs of the knees a little bit. And now I'm gonna think about pressing down with my feet and using my hamstrings muscles underneath the legs to start drawing the knees forward towards the toes. Just draw the knees, the whole kind of pose will draw forward and really try to recruit the strength of the hamstrings to do that. And now I'm gonna try to turn on the muscles of the quadriceps on the tops of the legs, push through the feet, use the quadriceps to push myself back towards the head. And now I'm gonna go back and forth. I'm gonna recruit the hamstrings, draw my knees forward, recruit my quadriceps, push my pose back. Recruit the hamstrings, draw my pose forward. At the same time, the pelvis is lifting, staying in that neutral relationship with the spine, and then pushing the pose back. And I'm just gonna kind of seesaw forward and back until I can try to kind of marry those two actions. So hamstrings contracting to draw the pose forward, quadriceps contracting to push the pose back. And if I can contract those and get them to activate equally, I sort of get to a place where the pose is still. So let's see if we can find that. And it's not still just because we lift it up and we're holding, but it's this balance between hamstrings drawing you forward and quadriceps pushing you back. And as you're ready, go ahead and lower the hips down from there. Maybe just kind of wave the knees out a little bit left and right. Take a couple of deep breaths, relax your face. So we can transition on up to a seated position. If you like to roll over, totally fine. You can also hug behind your legs, kind of give yourself a small rock all the way up. And it's from here, let's actually go ahead and roll over onto the knees. We can tuck the toes under here and sit on back. Now, of course, we know we have options. We can always sit up onto a step stool and take the legs a little bit wider so that you're not putting as much load into the legs. But if you can handle it here, maybe even kind of guide your pinky toe a little bit more under so you start to feel the soles of the feet wake up a little bit more. And it's from here we'll work a couple sit to stand variations. So if we lean forward and we just press down, we can push into the floor and sort of rock the knees up. And as we walk ourselves back, it's like maybe the heels are lifted, but maybe you also kind of get to a point where the whole foot is down on the ground. That's kind of inconsequential though, so don't think about that necessarily as the goal. Instead, think of just kind of even starting to use the hands for support, maybe at first to rock forward, and then to rock back. And then, you know, you gauge for yourself, like what is your body prepared to do today? Because you could also take the hands away from the ground and see if you can control the action. And there may be parts of the action that you can't really control without your arms, and that's okay. This is just really a playground. Woo. So even if you come all the way down onto your butt, that's okay. So we're working coordination here. And then the next time you come forward, come all the way forward, release your feet, maybe tap them out a few times. And then we'll go ahead and come out to a seat. So very similarly, We can work from a sit to a stand. We'll just try to be as creative as possible and let our brain process this and develop new neural pathways. So from a seated position, feel free to use your arms as much as feels appropriate there. And we'll just start to come all the way on up to a stand. When you come all the way up to a stand, you're just there. And then you say, okay, like how can I come back down to the floor? Maybe it's one leg, the second leg down, coming all the way down to the floor, kind of just like in a little relaxed situation, and then coming all the way back up. So the invitation here, let's keep going, and it's really just kind of finding whatever creative ways work to come all the way down to the floor and all the way back on up to stand. And so again, we know that we can always use our hands here, right? And if this is starting to feel really good for you, instead of coming all the way up to a stand, you can add more challenge by seeing if you can instead pull yourself more towards, stay low and pull yourself more towards a squat, and then coming back down. So you either come all the way on up to stand now, or you're staying a little bit more low, which will be a little bit more challenging for the lower body to explore and articulate and control. And then the next time you come all the way up, let's come to our feet. Good job. Let's actually meet at the very back of the yoga mat. Heels touching the back of the yoga mat, so you have a long space in front of you. Now we'll work our standing sequence. So with the left foot on the ground, we can take the right foot right in front. So all 10 toes pointing the same directions. You know, if this is ever too much balance, you can always take your foot off to the side, or you can always grab onto a chair or a countertop. And so here we're just letting our extrinsic foot muscles, those are the muscles that start in the foreleg and then travel down into the foot. Those muscles are learning what their job is. Stabilizing the foot, stabilizing the ankle, the lower leg. We just let them figure out their job. And then you can add more complexity. You can add more instability to the pose, which will make the muscles try to figure things out with a little bit more precision. If you start to rock your pose forward and then backward. So just kind of rocking. Try to keep the weight of the feet nice and even from left to right, even though it's varying front to back. And then as you're ready, the next time you rock forward, rock all the way forward, bring your back foot in front, and again, a little rock. Where this time as we rock, we might rock into a heel lift. So we'll see, can I lift both of my heels intentionally together with control all the way up? And then can I lower them intentionally with control all the way down? And again, lifting both heels and lowering both heels together. And now lift the right and then the left, like a rolling action, and then the right and then the left. And now this one might be a little bit harder, the left and then the right. And again, left and right. And then taking the weight onto that front foot, move the back foot forward. And again, rooting down. Can I lift both heels together? Nice coordinated effort. Heels all the way down. Heels lift together again. And all the way down. Another rolling action, back to front, so left and then right. And now front to back, right and then left down. Rolling action, front to back, so we lift right first, then left. And then we'll lower the back one and then the front. And now, to keep your weight on your right foot, can we lift our left leg into hip flexion in front of us? So we're balancing now on one leg. And of course, you know, you can always just be working more towards the floor with the foot, totally appropriate. If it feels okay for you here, to do a little bounce in the standing knees so you can see what's my knee tracking like here. Knee tracking over second toe, outer foot, outer knee, outer hip alignment. If you have a mirror, you can actually look at yourself and kind of see, like, am I doing that? And then I straighten that standing leg underneath me. So I got my outer hip in place here. I got a lot of muscles around the pelvis holding for support so that this left leg can be nice and lifted here. I want to see as well that my pelvis is in neutral. I'm not scooping my tailbone under, so my low back is pressing forward. My low back is neutral while my hips are flexed, rather than my low back being flexed and my hips being out of that flexion. So you can kind of see the difference there. And I know it's a lot, so go ahead, release that down just by the right foot. And we can bring the right leg up. And so again, we just work with the standing leg, just a little bounce here, getting our knee tracking in place. So we're teaching the muscles of that standing leg, what's my job, what's my job, what's my job, to support as we come up. So the standing leg working, all those joints down there feel good, the ankle, the knee, they could bend if they really needed to. That's also what the bounce helps with. Working with hip flexion, just keeping the face nice and calm and easy. Okay, and then releasing that all the way down to the ground. From here, we're gonna take the hands to the pelvis. We're gonna bend the knees just a little bit. From pelvis to head, we're nice and neutral. And then we're gonna see, can I lift my left leg up and stretch it just in front of me a little bit? Now I need to keep my pelvis, my knees tracking straight, right? So knees tracking in front of their second toes. As I bend the pelvis, that's how it's going. The whole pelvis is going back together. It's not swaying out to the right. And I'm gonna bend my standing leg and see how far can I get the left foot to go forward. It's not that far. It's like, you can see where I landed right here. It's like 1.5 feet. But now here we are. We have left foot forward. We have right leg back with hands onto the legs. I wanna use the muscles on the thighs to squeeze around the knees, control my knee tracking over the second toe as I lift my back heel and I start to bend both knees. And maybe I bring it towards a tap with the right leg and then back up. But of course I can always stop along that chain of movement, right? So let's go ahead, bring that left foot back underneath the frame of the body. How did you do? That's kind of a big, complicated movement. And the more we repeat it though, I think the more it makes sense. So hands on the pelvis, a little bend into the knees. You can really feel though how this trains the muscles of the legs to be really deliberate with their control of the bones. So I'm gonna pick my right foot up. It's just going in front and I'm paying attention now to my standing leg. So as it bends, that hip keeps pulling back. So my knee is still tracking over the second toe, outer hip bone still in line with outer knee. So it's not swiveling out to the side. I see how much of a bend can I get as I stretch that foot all the way forward. As it comes down to the ground, I can transfer the weight. And now my weight is kind of just in both feet. Now I'm gonna pay attention to knee tracking. I'm gonna use my legs and I'm gonna see how much of this pose will my body give me. As I bend both knees, the back heel lifts, down and up. And the right foot moves back. Can we do one more on each side? Let's try. Bending the knees, lift the left foot, stretch it forward, bend the standing leg, get it as forward, as forward, as forward, as forward, as forward, as forward as we can. Transfer the weight onto both feet. Bend the knees, control the hips, and up, and back. One more to the other side. You ready? Bend the knees a little bit. Stretch your right leg forward. The more that the pelvis goes back, the more that that heel can reach forward, 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 forward. There it goes. And it goes all the way down to the floor. And now we just see what we have, even if it's just 2 inches. You work with whatever range of motion is pain-free and that you have control in. That's how it gets better over time. It's hard to talk. Pull that back. Okay, go ahead and turn to face the long edge of your mat. You take the hands together and take the feet underneath the hips. Good, another bend into the knees here. So it's kind of like a chair pose. Now we're gonna work with moving the leg out and in, but we're gonna do that. We're gonna try to recruit the muscles back here in the glutes. We're gonna try to work the muscles back here in the glutes, and the only way to do that is if the glutes are holding onto the pelvis to keep it really still. So imagine that your pelvis doesn't wanna move at all as we start to lift the right foot and stretch it out to the side. And then bring it back into center. We can do it with the other side as well. So we lift the left foot, and we stretch it out to the side. We try not to disturb that. On this side, as we bring it out, we can just kind of glide over just a little bit, and then bring it back through the center. So it's really training the standing leg here. Ready? We're gonna pick the right leg up, stretch it over. You gotta keep that left bottom in, and then bring it all the way back. Okay, can we do this maybe a few more times on each side? And if you can't feel it in the, so much in the glutes or in the legs, because we're training like the whole leg to be really nice and still for us while we move our other leg. And so just know that a lot of this stuff, it just comes with practice. Let's do one more. Ooh. And now here we are, come on up. Turn to face the front of your mat. You're at the center of the mat now, right? So let's take one foot in front of the other. Couple of nice, deep, slow, controlled breaths. Just breathing, appreciating the effort of the lower body. Let's step up off onto the right foot so that the left leg is hovering up into hip flexion. Okay, so we're in active hip flexion. That means that our hip is controlling this action itself. We know, of course, that in order for us to be in hip flexion, we need to not be borrowing from any other place. So that's why we have our standing leg nice and grounded below us. That's why we're trying to stay as nice and lifted and as neutral in the spine as possible. We can even grab onto the leg if it's there, and without trying to change the pelvis. That's important, right? Because hip motion is thigh moving or pelvis moving. In this case, it's thigh, so our pelvis needs to stay still as we start to draw the left leg maybe an inch or more into the body. So now I have more hip flexion than I could create on my own, but I'm still gonna see if my hip flexors are strong enough to deal when I take my hands away. And release. And I know they're big sensations, but just work with them. Like, if you don't need to shake out, don't shake out. It can be awkward, it can feel intense. That's okay, we can deal with intense things. And we take the right leg up. And again, I just wanna make sure, like, hip flexion is the name of my game here. So where am I borrowing from what other places? How can I not do that? And then can I hug around that right leg without disturbing the pelvis? Can I draw the right leg? Maybe I can't. Maybe it's just like the effort of doing it. Closer. And now can my hip flexor hold it on its own? And down. Good, and then this time we're gonna pick up the left leg again into some hip flexion. And this time, my friends, please feel free to grab onto something, especially if you are lacking control up here. I just like this version because it's active range of motion. We're not relying on like pushing weight into a floor or something like that in order to create a joint action. This is all us doing it ourselves. So now I want to hold myself nice and stable as I take my left leg in some external and internal rotations. So one direction, like one circle, will take the leg through both ranges of motion. And I'm actually going to hold my pelvis here or support because I don't trust that it won't move on its own. And of course, there will always be a little bit of borrowing. That's normal. We're just trying to minimize it. Take your leg circles the other direction. I'm just trying to become as controlled, as monitored as possible. Even sometimes I get into this place where I'm like, I've done this a bunch, let me just speed up. No, let me slow down. Let me gain more control, more precision. That's actually what makes my tissues adapt and feel better. Even though it's harder in the moment. So when you're ready, release that. And as you feel prepared for side 2, the right leg comes up. So first you find a nice neutral standing position that you can sort of commit to as you start to take the leg in some controlled rotations. And I'm really thinking about rotating the thigh bone in the hip socket itself. And when this side feels about equal to that of the other, go ahead and release out of that. I do have a couple more standing balance sequences for us. So we just worked through flexion, we worked through internal and external rotation. So now we have extension. For this one, we can take our hands onto our hips. And again, I'm gonna take it to the front of the pelvis because I know that when I take my leg back, the leg as a lever of the pelvis is something that's designed to move the pelvis. It wants to move the pelvis back with it. So I need to do everything in my power to resist that. So my pelvis is nice and upright. I'm just gonna bend my left foot like a flamingo. I'm gonna get my standing foot nice and balanced underneath me, take my knees as together as possible, orient my legs so they're neutral, as in like if my knees had laser beams, they would be pointing forward. Now it's my hamstring's job here. So I got to keep my pelvis in, I got to squeeze my hamstring and take my heel towards my bottom. Now for some of us, we may feel like kind of what we did on the front where we grabbed the knee, we took more flexion. Can I grab my foot, give myself a little bit deeper knee bend here? Now this is way more than my hamstring can do on its own, right? So I got to kind of mind this, I got to see, can I control my pelvis, let go of my foot and ask my hamstring to do the work. If you get cramps, release out of it. That was too much. But cramping is more or less a good thing. It just means that we have to do more and we have to work within the range that we're prepared to work in. Good, release that. And let's take the other side. So we're just gonna take the right foot up behind us. We have a moment to kind of fix the legs so that they're in neutral. Pelvis is in neutral. Use the hamstring, the buttock, squeeze the heel in. If it's advised, if we're prepared for it, we can grab for the foot back there. Keep working the pelvis in as we draw the heel in. And now this is much more than my hamstring does on its own. Can I hold it? Great job. Go ahead, release out of that. Feel your sweet little leggies up here. I always like to end with the hamstring work because then I feel like I'm supercharged when I start walking around. So that's where we'll leave it for today. Next week, we're gonna do another movement snack, but it's gonna be more focused on the recovery aspects of these tissues down here. So we've done a lot of hard work so far. I'm really proud of us. So I'll see you right here next week. And I also wanna let you know, come support us on Patreon. Support our ability to make these videos. You get closer to us, you get access to all my resources from functional range conditioning, physical therapy, Pilates, kin stretch, all these different modalities that we're now infusing into our yoga practice. So thanks so much for joining everyone. I'll see you here next time.